Ladies and gentlemen, we're having a 15-minute delay here. If you'd please bear with us, we'll be right back in 15 minutes. Thank you.
City of Socorro City Council is set to begin. Gentlemen, please remove your hats, and everyone please silence all electronic equipment. No disruptive behavior or outburst will be tolerated, and violators are subject to ejection and possible prosecution. La Junta del Concilio de la Ciudad de Socorro está por empezar. Caballeros, favor de quitarse las cachuchas, sombreros y todos por favor de poner en silencio todo equipo electrónico. No se va a tolerar ningún tipo de comportamiento perjudicial o revoltoso. A quien no siga esas reglas se le sacará y puede ser infraccionado.
It is now 6:09 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Item number 3, Establishment of Quorum.
Ruben Reyes is absent. Cesar Nevares.
Here.
Alejandro Garcia is absent. Mayor Ivy Avalos.
Here.
Rudy Cruz.
Here.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 4, proclamation to recognize the month of July as the City of Socorro's Recreation Appreciation Month. Proclamation. Whereas community and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the City of Socorro, Texas, and whereas our recreation staff are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of our community and region, and whereas community and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease and improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens, and whereas community and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of business, and crime reduction, and whereas community and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas community and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our community and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the City of Socorro recognizes the benefit derived from community and recreation resources. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor of the City of Socorro along with the City Council that July is recognized as Community and Recreation Month in the City of Socorro, Texas.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the proclamation and for supporting our department with this recognition. As part of our ongoing duties, day in and day out, my staff does a plethora of things that we can expect and things that we don't expect. My department, never says no to challenges. We love a challenge. If you would have told me 8 years ago this would have been our department, I wouldn't have believed you. So I want to recognize the girls, the ladies of recreation. I got you all a little gift. So when I say your name, please come forward, and we're going to give you a little token of appreciation. We'll start with Coordinator Lizbeth Castro. With Mayor. Yeah. She's not here because she's on vacation, but she's here, I'm sure, watching online. Our multimedia specialist, Ms. Diana Rodriguez. And then just stay up there. Recreation Leader Zulema Pacheco. Recreation Leader Marisela Corral. Recreation Leader Isabela Perez. And we're not just recreation, we're also art. Art instructor, Ms. Lourdes Aguilar.
Felicidades y gracias.
Art instructor, Mrs. Nora Reyes.
Congratulations.
And our wellness coordinator, Ms. Laura Arredondo. Ladies, I want to say thank you. I am not successful without you. I owe you everything, and I want to say thank you so much. So please enjoy this gift. And Ivan here will take a group photo of us.
A las estrellas.
Sinvergüenza, sinvergüenza, sinvergüenza. Cheese. Congratulations. No, thank you.
Moving on to public comment, item number 5.
Mayor, we have several speakers for public comment. Our first speaker is Miriam Cruz. Ms. Cruz?
Thank you, Ms. Navarro. I think it's my time to go. Yes. I can't really hear y'all, and it's really hard to hear you on YouTube since there's a delay. But anyway, first of all, I wanted to say I'm happy to see Ms. Colombia Lobos there. I'm not sure if you were at other meetings, but I'm happy that you're joining there and healthy and happy and there. But anyway, I did want to mention two things. I'll try to be quick. The first one is that there are a lot of issues with the medians that are being placed on Horizon Road. I don't understand. Well, first of all, I'd like to know who the contractor is because I know it's from TxDOT. But I hope and I wish that the city of Socorro, the representatives, city staff, would reach out to TxDOT because they're doing, well, I'll try to be nice. They're doing not such a good job on putting those medians. They are crooked. They are beyond the lines. And so I invite you all to go and drive on Horizon Road. Of course, it's in the city of Socorro. So I'm talking about South Horizon, south of I-10. It's not a really good job. And so there's only so much that we can do as constituents and as residents to reach out to them. But I think if the city reaches out, especially before they complete the project, that would be helpful. It's accident prone, safety issue. The medians need to be done correctly, and they should be done correctly. They should look nice in the city of Socorro. The second concern is, I don't know what ended up happening with getting commission members or board members shirts and food. I don't know what you guys were talking about, and I know I said that I wasn't interested in any of that, and I'm not. I still am not. The only thing that I would like to see is for us to have name tags. We sit in the chairs that y'all are sitting in right now, And so when people come to our meetings, they see the names that are your names on the placards. And I have requested previously that we get our own names, because I think that would be helpful for the public to know who's actually speaking, and that I usually sit where Ms. Colombia Lobos is sitting, and that I'm not Ms. Colombia Lobos, rather that I am Miriam Cruz, Commissioner of, Planning and Zoning Commission. And so that's the only request that I would ask. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be a paper. Honestly, it could be a hard paper, cardstock paper, with our name on it. But I think it would be helpful, again, for the public and people that go present to the commissions, that they know exactly who we are and our names, and not be
Cruz,
confusing us
your
with you
time
guys.
is up.
Thank you.
Hector Ramos? Señor Ramos, tiene 3 minutos.
Gracias. Mayor, consejeros, la ocasión amerita pedirles un poco más de tiempo, pero no lo voy a hacer. Voy a tratar de ser lo más conciso. Hace casi un año empecé a asistir a estas reuniones con el fin de aprender cómo funciona nuestro gobierno y aprender más y ser un buen ciudadano también, conociendo el funcionamiento de aquí. Hay otras administraciones anteriores en otros lugares que siempre han hablado de tener políticas abiertas, políticas de puertas abiertas, y sí las tienen, hasta que alguien empieza a preguntar una y otra y otra y otra vez. Las puertas permanecen abiertas, pero no hay respuestas. Se acabaron las respuestas, se acabó la buena voluntad. Y precisamente estoy aquí porque hay personas que no se rinden cuando oyen un no, que tienen disposición que no tienen una oficina para tener las puertas abiertas, pero que tienen la disposición y los oídos abiertos para ayudar a otros. Y me estoy refiriendo precisamente a Ivy, a quien estoy aquí precisamente para darte las gracias por ese apoyo, esa ayuda tan enorme que nos hiciste el favor de hacernos junto con el mayor, quienes nos ayudaron a poder no tan solo obtener el permiso de las personas propietarias del lote que está enfrente de East Lake, el área comercial, sino que aparte del permiso hicieron el esfuerzo de obtener los recursos necesarios para levantar la construcción de esa barda, que ahorita, si la van y la ven, está el 50% terminado y está hermosísimo. Mayor, Ivonne, mi reconocimiento, y les pido por favor que transmitan nuestro agradecimiento a las personas que les ayudaron a ustedes con la aportación de esos recursos, que también cuenta mucho. Muchas gracias.
Adriel Bustillos. Mr. Bustillos, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, council people and mayor. I am from County Commissioner Holguin's office for Precinct 3, which represents Socorro, the city of Socorro. I have given out these little flyers which say rental assistance and utility assistance. The county is providing that in partnership with 2 other organizations. In addition to that, I am here in case you have any concerns. This is to the public. That I can take back to the office starting tomorrow, and any concerns from the council people that we can help with at the County Commissioner's office. Ahora en español, les di volantes que dicen que están dando asistencia a rental y para las utilidades. Si necesitan ayuda con esto, la oficina de la comisionadora Holguín está abierta. Y si tienen otras preguntas o cosas que preguntar a la oficina, aquí estoy para recibir esos comentarios o cómo le podemos ayudar. Y si necesitan la tarjeta de la oficina, yo también la tengo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Did all council people need one, Mayor?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Mayor, those were all our speakers.
Thank you. Moving on to consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Ruben Reyes is absent. Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia is absent. Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Now moving on to regular agenda. Public hearing and ordinances, item number 15. Public hearing of an ordinance adopting the proposed draft map for redistricting, thereby revising the city council member district boundaries in response to the 2020 census. It is now 6:24 p.m. Public hearing is open.
Mayor, we have a speaker for this item, Miriam Cruz.
Thank you, Ms. Navarro. And do I have a minute and a half or 3 minutes?
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you, Ms. Cruz.
I was asking if I have a minute and a half or 3 minutes.
You have, there's no time limit on public hearings.
Oh, there's no time limit? I'm sorry, is that what I heard?
No limit on public hearings, Ms. Cruz.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm telling you, I don't know why today you guys sound so far away. But anyway, don't worry, I'm not going to take too much time. The concern that I have on the map, the proposed map, is that it's not showing a lot of the new subdivisions. And I know that some of these subdivisions weren't built, some people weren't living when the census was taken. But I thought that was something that was supposed to be taken into account. And when I was first reviewing everything, my initial comments were going to be that I thought that the law firm that provided all this information, the memo, the map and stuff, I thought they did a great and thorough job. But as I looked into more detail, I did find a few things that were concerning. One of which it seems that District 1 isn't being taken, well, it mostly affects District 1, where I believe that most of current and upcoming development isn't being taken into consideration about how large that's going to be within the next, 4 years. Really, even currently, if you look at the map, Old Hueco Tanks doesn't show any of the new subdivisions on that space. And so I wanted to make that initial comment in regards to the map. And I think, unfortunately, the city council should consider going back to the drawing board to take that into consideration. But then the other thing that I wanted to point out is that the page, draft map A, the last page, shows that there is a discrepancy of about 400 votes or so for voting, 400 individuals of the voting age population, mostly affecting or mainly affecting District 2. And I know that District 2 representative isn't there today, or maybe he's on the line, I don't know. I couldn't hear. But I would, again, urge City Council to potentially put a pin on this map, since that district, all the other districts are above 6,000 in population for voting age. That's the only one that's under, and I understand it's only under by 4,500, but everyone else is well over 6,000. And so, it seems that not only is there a discrepancy now, but how much larger is that going to grow with, again, District 1 being the predominant district where growth is happening. Again, that's already happened. People are already living on new Hueco Tanks. That new subdivision's coming up in Horizon. They'll approved it. I mean, all of these things are coming up. And so, again, I just urge the city to really think about, because it's something that's going to affect the city for the next 10 years, not just, for the next 8 years at least. But That's a long time. And so I would just hope that we could be more thoughtful of that. Thank you.
I know it's public. Mr. Martinez, can we ask questions or something that she mentioned that it's kind of, well, we're gonna do the.
It's hard for me to give you a definitive answer because I don't know what you're going to say. The rule is you can make a statement of fact, and that's it. And so I'm worried that if you ask a question and somebody else, anyone else, tries to answer it, then you've gone further and you're now deliberating.
And then we ask during the item. Before you make a decision. Okay, gotcha, thank you.
Are there any other speakers?
No other speakers, Mayor.
It is now 6:29 PM. Public hearing is closed. Item number 16, second reading and adoption of an ordinance adopting the proposed draft map for redistricting, thereby revising city council member district boundaries in response to the 2020 census.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Mayor and Council, we do have Mr. Rizam Pulam from Borges Law Firm on the line, in case you have any questions. Hello, Mr. Pulam. Do you have a presentation or? I know he has presented at council several meetings now. We've opened it up to the public. We received the comments. We are required to publish it to the public for a period of time. And, you know, this map, and now it's brought to you all so we can adopt it. But I know that Ms. Colombia Lobos had a question.
Ms. Villalobos?
So, just to go over what the last speaker said, we are including every subdivision that's up and running now, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that was taken into account whenever the maps were created. I know, that was kind of brought up when we first presented the illustrative map. And, that area, the motivation behind the way that it's drawn is to have more contiguous boundaries, but it also does account for future annexations, future growth that's to be anticipated with the city of Socorro. It's not going to be a perfect science. There's some give and take that has to happen across each of the districts in order for it to get balanced. But I do welcome any comments or any, additions or versions that, the council may desire. I see, I believe what Ms. Cruz was referring to in the proposed map. And that's all commentary on which we've tried to elicit from the very beginning of the process. So I think this map, as it is now, is a good version for the city of Socorro. As I said, it meets all those criteria that we established at the outset of the process and the resolutions. And, the total deviation, which we're getting at, is right at a little bit more than 4%. So with that being said, there's enough, give and take to where, assuming Socorro grows in that matter, it won't be so much so to where you're, way out of balance in the next 8 to 10 years. And that's the purpose of why we try to get it well below the 10% value so that you have some room for growth in either of these districts. With Socorro still being able to grow, to the south a little bit and more so easterly, obviously that growth is going to affect District 1. But we believe District 2, it's also going to grow. It was able to kind of grab some more of the population that's occurring in the center of the city. So I believe this is a a good map to go forward with. However, you know, like I said, it's the desire of the council. So if there's more considerations we would like, we can do so. We would just need to be really getting to it so that we can pass this in time for it to be good for the next election in November.
Thank you.
Mayor, we have a speaker for this item, Miriam Cruz.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ms. Navarro.
You have a
I
minute
wish
and a
you guys
half.
would keep that map up. Well, you didn't. Okay, well, so that map, my concern was that it doesn't show the new subdivisions, right? The ones that are already built, which was my main concern as to whether or not, it's not clear. It's unclear to me as a viewer, as a constituent, whether or not those actually were included. Now, the numbers are being included and the map is just the one that's lacking. I mean, you know, why not just update the map? The street names are there. There's many, many streets already built. And again, most of them that are missing from that visual map is from just in District 1. I'm not going to take away my comments that I was going to say at the very beginning, which was that this was a very thorough investigation. My concern is that I don't know if the individuals from the law firm came out to the city of Socorro to be here physically and just see the amount of growth. Did planning and zoning share all of the subdivisions that were have been approved and that are in the plans to be built? Those would be my main concerns. And again, District 1 is the one that I believe is going to be the most affected or have the most growth. I know there's a little bit of growth happening in all the districts, but I think, again, being part of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I know that most of it is happening in District 1. So that was my only last comment.
Ms. Cruz, your
Ms.
time is up.
Villalobos, thank you for asking your questions.
Yes, thank you for those comments. If the issue is kind of the depiction of the streets or neighborhood, we can work to, make sure that that's included on a final map. And like I said, we're flexible with however the council would like us to move in that direction.
Mayor, for the record, Mr. Ruben Reyes arrived to the meeting at 6:36. Ruben Reyes?
Here.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Cesar Nevares?
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia is absent. Rudy Cruz?
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos?
Yes.
Moving to Grants Department, item number 17, discussion and action to approve Resolution 707, authorizing city manager to sign current or future advance funding agreements, amendments, and official documents with relation to the implementation of transportation projects funded by TxDOT on behalf of the city of Socorro, Texas.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Alejandra Valadez, City Development Director. We are requesting your approval on a resolution to designate city manager as another authorized signatory in addition to Mayor Avalos for all TxDOT agreements, amendments, and other official documents related to the implementation of TxDOT-funded transportation projects. Currently, the only authorized signatory is Mayor Avalos, and designating our city manager will increase the turnaround time in the event that Mayor Avalos is unavailable due to vacation or any other reason. And as we are now getting closer to the letting of our 3 major transportation projects, we are finding that sometimes the turnaround time for these documents is very quick. So we'd like to have this as a backup in case Mayor Avalos is not available.
Ruben Reyes?
Yes.
Cesar Nevares?
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia is absent. Rudy Cruz?
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos?
Yes.
Item number 18, discussion and action to approve the ARPA CSL FRF policy, regulatory and internal control framework for the city's use of American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We are requesting your approval on the ARPA policy, which is included in your backup, including all appendix that are attached. As you recall, Congress has authorized the use of ARPA funds starting from March 3rd, 2021. On January 6, 2022, the final rule took effect. The final rule dictates what we can and cannot do with the ARPA funds, reporting and compliance requirements, and other statutory requirements. An updated reporting guidance was released by the Treasury on June 10th, 2022. And so what we're doing now is we're making sure that we're incorporating all of these new guidance documents that are released by the Treasury and incorporating them into a formal ARPA policy. What you see on your screen is a reflection of what you have in the backup, and I'll briefly go through each section of the policy in case there's any questions. So we start with the purpose of this policy. The purpose is to describe the general regulatory and internal control framework for the city's use of ARPA funds. And it's important to remember that it is the city's responsibility to ensure that ARPA funds are used in compliance with all program requirements, including the Treasury final rule, as well as the uniform guidance. Next slide. The governing body is the mayor and city council. This body has ultimate authority on how we use those ARPA funds. And city council does establish priorities and programs via the ARPA spending framework. This is a document that we've been bringing to you since October 2021 with updates on how we're allocating those ARPA funds. A little bit of background. We did experience the COVID-19 pandemic starting from March 1st, 2020. Although the COVID-19 pandemic seems to be subsiding, federal, state, and local governments are now shifting the focus on pandemic recovery efforts. On March 11th, 2021, the American Rescue Plan Act was signed into law, and the city received its first distribution of ARPA funds, which was about $4.3 million on August 20th, 2021. On January 6th of the following year, the U.S. Treasury released the final rule, which took effect on April 1st, 2022. On June 10th, 2022, the U.S. Treasury released updated compliance and reporting guidance documents. And now the city has the ability to use these ARPA funds to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic impacts, but we also have the responsibility to ensure that these funds are used in compliance with all program requirements. What are the eligible uses of ARPA funds? There are 4 statutory categories that we can use these ARPA funds for. One is to respond to the COVID-19 public health emergency and its negative impacts. The second one is to respond to essential workers and provide pay for essential workers. The third one is for the provision of government services in the event that local governments experience a reduction of revenues due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For the city of Socorro, that is not the case. And the last one is to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. All of this is spelled out in the final rule released by the U.S. Treasury and in the compliance documents that are also put out by the Treasury. So one of the things that is required is for the city to develop and implement internal controls to ensure that the ARPA funding decisions constitute eligible uses under the law, and that the city documents these determinations. A well-developed ARPA internal control will ensure that the city maximizes these funds and also prevent fraud, waste, or abuse. We already have internal controls that the city has For example, our accounting policies, our purchasing policies, our employee handbook, we have that already codified, and we're already implementing many internal controls that are going to help us implement this ARPA program. However, we do need a few additional controls to make sure that we're following the specific requirements for ARPA. So in essence, the ARPA project review and approval process involves the City Council identifying the ARPA funding priorities. That's our ARPA spending framework, which is very broad. Then city departments, department heads, a city manager can request projects. These projects will now go through a review process to ensure that all of the items are eligible activities, eligible costs, and that we plan ahead if there will be any monitoring that is required or any subawards, contracts that we're meeting all of those federal requirements. After the projects are reviewed, they are sent to City Council. They are presented to City Council for approval. Once approved, the project can initiate. The department heads and the administrating department will take care of the day-to-day of administration of that project, make sure it's successful. Internally, we will meet on a quarterly basis to make sure that those projects are on track and that we're spending according to our approved budgets. We do have to submit an annual report to the U.S. Treasury every year, and so those quarterly meetings will help us compile what we need for those annual reports. And then throughout the project, there is subrecipient monitoring that is required, and there are some project closeout and record retention requirements that we need to follow after the project is completed and closed out. There are some roles and responsibilities that are spelled out in the policy. The main purpose of these roles and responsibilities are to ensure that we implement segregation of duties and that there is management review along the way, so that all of these transactions are not up to one person, but they are reviewed by a number of people, and that we have a redundant system to ensure that there's no waste or fraud or abuse. There is a subrecipient monitoring section in the event that we do award some of the city's funds to other entities. One of those could be the housing program. It's advisable for us to subaward some funds and have an agency administer those funds on behalf of the city, just because the city may not have the capacity to administer those funds or those programs. In that case, monitoring is required of financial and programmatic performance of ARPA subrecipients, and that is spelled out in the policy as well. And that is in short the entire policy. There are forms and attachments included in the policy, and I'm not sure if you all have any questions.
Mr. Cruz?
The additional controls that you spoke about, is it because the city doesn't possess those right now, or is it something that we have to seek after the funding?
The additional, thank you, good question. The additional controls are to ensure that all our project activities fall into the ARPA eligible categories, and that we are collecting the data that we need for the required reporting. For example, if a project involves beneficiaries, we need to document what kind of beneficiaries those are. Are they people that were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic or disproportionately impacted? Are they minority populations, low-income populations? So through our review process, we are now able to identify whether a project requires additional data collection and reporting, and then we'll be ready for our annual report. So those are the additional controls that we spelled out.
And for the collection of data, is there like a standardized database that's provided to you all, or we develop our own?
Yes, the U.S. Treasury has provided templates for those reports. They're very simple, but they tell you exactly what you need. So.
Okay, thank you.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia is absent, Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Moving on to city manager, item number 19, discussion and action to award RFQ 22-07 for engineering consultant services. Review committee recommends approval for the following firms: Hewitt Zollers, Inc., Camacho Hernandez and Associates, and CEA Group, to also authorize city manager or her designee to negotiate agreement. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So the purpose of this agenda item is to inform council of the sealed request of qualifications RFQ 2207 that was published May 8th and May 15th. All proposals were due and received on June 1st, 2022. City of Socorro received 7 proposals. City clerk opened bids on Wednesday, June 8th, 2022 at 3 p.m. Blanca Serrano Rivera, TechStar representative, was present as an observer. The review committee consisted of city manager, myself, Adriana Rodarte, finance director Charles Casiano, communications director, historic preservation officer Victor Reta, our city development director Alejandra Valadez, and city planner Carlos Gallinar. Below are the scores: Camacho Hernandez and Associates, and the way they're listed is the way that we receive, in the order that we received them. So the first bid that we received was Camacho Hernandez and Associates. They scored at an 83.80. The Frank Spencer and Associates scored 75. CEA Group scored 83.40. Hewitt Solars, Inc., 84. ESCO scored 64.20. DEC scored 72.40. And Paragon Project Resources, Inc. scored 60.40. Therefore, we recommend hiring the following 3 firms: Hewitt Solars, Inc., Camacho Hernandez and Associates, and CEA Group be awarded. The firms were scored based on experience and ability of firm, approach to service and staffing. The awarded firms meet all requirements. Do you all have any questions?
Mr. Cruz?
I was just gonna ask, how did you guys go with the scores? Was there like a spreadsheet that everybody followed, or?
Yes, sir, it's a ranking sheet.
Okay,
So the RFQ stipulates exactly how many points for each section that you're scoring on.
and they go by, let's say for an example, if they got, and it's just an example, if they got 5 engineers, they get 100 points. Or does it go?
Yes, sir. So the RFQ stipulates the percentages, and let me go to that section. So these RFQs are very important because we have to follow the Federal Highway Administration guidelines. So they're very specific that we score in a particular manner. And it tells you exactly the section on the bid that we published. Let me just find that page. So for experience and ability of firm, they're able to score up to 40%, approach to the services up to 30%, and staffing 30%. And all those 3 criteria have sections where you read through the packets and you score them.
Mr. Cruz?
Yeah, my question was the 3 firms that were selected, because we haven't formally awarded it until we take action, correct?
We haven't formally awarded?
Right.
Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
That is correct, sir. No one has been notified. There has been no conversation until after this council meeting.
So the 3 firms that have been selected, which ones have a local office?
So there are 2 that have a local office. However, the RFQ does require them that within 90 days, they are required to open shop here in El Paso.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I think that's one of the requirements, that they have to
Correct.
they have to reside here within the
Correct.
limits.
So the firm shall be required to establish an El Paso office staffed with managers and core staff to provide the following services: contract support, administrative assistance, advanced project development, right-of-way and utility work, PS&E management, coordination of construction management services and associated with administrative requirements, management and coordination of maintenance services and operations activities. And that is a requirement.
Mayor, for the record, Mr. Alejandro Garcia arrived to the meeting at 6:53.
Any other questions?
Ms. Villalobos, did you have a question?
No, it was really close to what Rudy's question was the three that you guys are recommending as the top three, and then you're going to go in there and just, finally pick one or come back to us?
No, so all three firms are being asked to be awarded because we do want to have them on a rotation schedule.
Okay.
And that way there's checks and balances and we don't have, similar situations that we are currently dealing with.
Okay, makes sense, thank you.
I have one last question.
Mr. Cruz?
So before this council takes action, just to understand, the process that the city went through in selecting these firms or putting out the RFQ was because of our procurement policies or expiration dates, not necessarily for the reasoning of, I guess to restate my question is this for recurring work or for new work to take place here?
It's for any type of engineering services. So we do have 3 projects that are letting. So the design work has been completed with those. Anything moving forward would go through one of these 3 firms.
Mayor, may I?
Yes, Mr. Martinez?
And just to address Mr. Cruz's question, Mayor and Council, I'm sorry, Jim Martinez, City Attorney. It is common in larger municipalities, I think this is kind of one of the indicia that Socorro is growing. It's common in larger municipalities to have a number of firms with what we call on-call contracts for sundry services that will be named later. They'll identify a project later and then assign it to one of the firms on the panel. It's common for various kinds of services like engineering services. It's also common for various like real estate appraisal services, demolition services, because those have to be sometimes done on an emergency basis, that kind of thing.
Ruben Reyes?
I got one last question.
Go ahead, Mr. Reyes.
You said that the projects we had, they were 100% done with, as far as, and I lost it. Rana, when you're talking about the projects, say they were with design, 100% with that design?
I'm sorry?
The 3 leading projects that
So
we had?
we have letting projects that are letting in July,
Okay,
which is Bovie, Rio Vista Bridge expansions, and the Passmore shared use path.
and those were already taken care
Through
of?
our current engineer that we have. Moving forward, any project is going to go through either one of these 3 firms.
Okay, thank you.
Ruben Reyes?
Yes.
Cesar Nevares?
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia?
Aye.
Rudy Cruz?
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for a quick recess.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Well, for the picture.
Ruben Reyes?
Yes.
Cesar Nevares?
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia?
Aye.
Rudy Cruz?
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos?
Yes.
Unmuted.
It is now 7:06 p.m. We are back from recess.
Mayor,
Mr. Garcia?
I'd like to make a motion to move items 24 and 26 up.
Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 24, discussion and action to direct staff on the installation of a commercial electrical vehicle charging station to accommodate the increase of electric cars in our community.
This is my item. We have seen a big push into, especially the gas prices, especially here in Socorro, and I'm hoping to bring some of that here to make sure we have our community members also intact that want to buy an electric car and know that the city is looking out for their best purpose. Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So we do have a presentation for you all? Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Ms. Valadez and myself went ahead and met with El Paso Electric to go ahead and do some preliminary investigation research to go ahead and see if there was any funding, any programs, or any projects that they might have as our utility provider to see what, if anything, could be presented to the city in regards to EV charging. I'd like to go ahead and introduce Angie and James. They are from El Paso Electric, specifically tag teaming the Department of EV Charging. So these are the experts in this field locally. They've done a lot of work not only in other municipalities within El Paso, but also looking at expansion in terms of Horizon, Vinton, and even San Elizario. So they were really excited when we approached them, letting them know we've done a little bit of field work. We've identified specific areas that the city owns so that way they can go ahead and get an idea. They did let us know there's a lot of options when it comes to EV charging, and I want to go ahead and let them present their presentation. If you give me 1 second, I will share the PowerPoint. James, will I get this set up? Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and Angie?
Of course. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
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 Great. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is James Pleasant II. I'm an engineer and also project manager of transportation electrification at El Paso Electric. I work with my supervisor, Angie Rodriguez. I believe she's on the call as well. And today we basically just wanted to give, oh, there she is. That's my supervisor, everybody. So we work closely together in all the electric vehicle initiatives within our company. And so we do advisory services, we help with rate assessment, we do site evaluations, and we could help with whatever initiatives you guys would like to do in the city of Socorro in relations to these electric vehicles. If you guys have any questions, our contact information is going to be on the presentation as well. We have an EV hotline, so you guys can go ahead and give that a call and then leave a drop there. Or you could always message us at our EV inbox. It's a shared inbox. It's ev@epelectric.com. And then Angie, would you like to say a few words before we get started on the presentation?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here. I would like to say that we're very excited to talk to City of Socorro about electric vehicle charging stations, especially considering the fact that they're becoming more and more affordable. And with the existing prices that we have in the market for gas, we're seeing a lot of interest from our customers in electric transportation. Some customers can charge in their own home, but some may not live in the home. Maybe they live in the apartment. So for those customers, we need to think about public infrastructure, including workplace charging and public charging. So we're very excited to talk to you about these opportunities today. Thank you.
All right. Is everybody able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. So today we're on the topic of electric vehicles, EV for short, and then charging infrastructure associated with it. Next slide, please. These are the agenda for today, the EV trends, EV charging options and opportunities, and then incentives. So we always like to say, what's the promise of electrification? Well, for customers, they save on fuel and maintenance. It's fun to drive, and since it's a newer technology with more gadgets, it's also convenient to charge at home. So 80% of people actually charge at home. So even though public charging stations aren't as popular as they are with gas stations, most people actually like the convenience of going to their home, charging in an outlet. And unlike the common misconceptions, you don't need a station at your house. It's just like a cell phone. Whenever you purchase this vehicle, it's going to come with an adapter, and that adapter could do a 120 volt or a 240 volt. And we'll talk about those different levels of charging in a minute. For the environment, they reduce greenhouse emissions because there's zero tailpipe emissions, and it's decreased noise levels. Some of these vehicles, they actually have to put noise in the vehicle so that way people can have that rev up engine kind of sound, but there's no engine with the vehicles. It's just an engine, it's a motor and an electric battery. And for the economy, they stimulate the economy by creating new jobs, skilled workforces, and EV charging stations actually attract customers to businesses and encourage them to stay longer. On average, most people stay about an hour to 2 hours at an electric vehicle charging station. So whenever they're strategically located next to a mall, a shopping center, maybe a movie theaters or a gym, those are the best locations for these public charging stations. And then for the grid, it creates an opportunity for bidirectional power flow, meaning that not only can the stations consume power, but these vehicles could act as moving batteries. So that way they could transport power to maybe vehicle to home, vehicle to building, or even provide it back to the grid during needs of support. And it could also help manage our grid too if we start using the electricity at night or during off-peak hours, meaning we can increase our load factor, meaning that we could use the same amount of generation to give more electricity, which actually puts downward pressure on the rates, causing all the ratepayers to pay a lesser fee. If you could go to the next slide. So this slide right here is just about the US trends. We always like to talk about how there's over 2 million, excuse me, sorry, I lost the presentation. Is it still showing for you guys?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Press the wrong button. Excuse me. There we go. So there's more than 2 million EVs on the US and expected to reach over 22 million within the decade. And because of political orders such as the executive order, they propose to put 50% of all new car sales to be electric by 2030. There's over 40,000 charging stations in the US. And again, the infrastructure bill, another executive order, is proposing to put $7.5 billion for EV initiatives. So that way we could reach up to 500,000 stations, 500,000 across the US. Next slide, please. So these are the 4 main reasons why people choose to go electric. Some people may say it's environmentally friendly, which is very true, but realistically, most people would probably buy an electric vehicle because of the low cost of ownership. There's no engine, there's no transmission, no radiator fluid top-offs, no oil changes. There's fewer moving parts, and when there's fewer moving parts, that means less money to spend on O&M. And electricity is 2 to 3 times cheaper than gasoline, and that statistic was done before the gasoline prices recently went up. So a lot of new studies are showing that they could be up to 3 to 6 times cheaper than gasoline. They have great performance. There's instant torque. Because there's no transmission, it's just purely electric. As soon as you put your foot to the pedal, it accelerates. And just the convenience, like I mentioned earlier, 80% of all charging is done at home. And so what we'd like to do is bring public charging to those, like Angie mentioned earlier, especially living in multi-unit dwelling or apartments, so that way they could have access to home charging as well. Maybe at their complex, or maybe at a local gym, or maybe at a store that they visit frequently, so that way they could charge. Next slide. So what drives growth? Definitely the decreasing battery cost and favorable government policies is the ones we mentioned earlier. Increased availability in EV models. And for those of you who are unaware of all the models available, we actually have an EV online shopping tool that we have with El Paso Electric. And basically you can compare up to 3 vehicles at a time, an electric vehicle, a plug-in hybrid, and just a gasoline vehicle. And you can compare the specs like the mileage, the range, the energy consumption compared to the gasoline consumption. And then you could also do a 5-year cost, so that way you could see the O&M of a gasoline vehicle versus the O&M of a battery or full electric. They have improved EV range from over the past years, and there's a lot more available charging infrastructure now, and there's a lot more customer awareness and understanding of the technology. I'd like to give an example of, we had an event where we did basically an electric car show, and this was in Las Cruces. We serve both El Paso, Las Cruces, Socorro. We do Texas and New Mexico. And they were saying there's no public charging stations, but there was actually a public charging station right there at the event that people were just unaware of what they were or what their purpose was. So when we start to increase the awareness, people are more accepting to the technology, and they could be more informed about a decision to switch to electric. Next slide. So these are the different levels of charging. We're just going to focus on public charging for now. We have level 2 charging, and sometimes people call it level 3, but it's really DC fast charging. So for the DC fast charging, that's the most rapid form of charging there is. That can do, basically it can fill up your battery from 0 to 100% in about 10 to 30 minutes, depending on your vehicle. And level 2 charging is probably the most common that you'll see. This is 200 voltage, while the DC fast charging is 400 voltage and up. But the level 2 charging, you could expect to get anywhere from 10 to 30 miles of range per hour of plug-in. And considering the fact that the average person only drives about 40 miles a day, that 30 miles per hour is all you need. So in only about 1 to 2 hours, you can get your daily commute back. Next slide. So we always like to show this slide just so that way people can see the different options that are out there. Most people are familiar with the pedestal option in the very top center, but some people may not have seen the wall-mounted ones that you could put in parking garages, or the overhead one as well as in parking garages, or the streetlight poles, where you guys could basically attach them to a pole so that way it could reduce any sort of vandalism. And those are really cool because they activate via a QR code or a phone call at the bottom, and the plug will descend down and you can charge your vehicle that way as well. Next slide. So these are some different ownership opportunities. So Socorro, the city of Socorro, if they're interested, they could always lease it through a third-party vendor. The better thing about that is there's a lower upfront cost, but the lifetime of the project is a little higher, and there's flexibility with technology. A lot of these third-party vendors will have warranties, or they'll have basically clauses in their conditions that say that if there's a new technology or there needs to be an update, they'll go ahead and swap out that technology or update it for you. Versus if City of Socorro were to own the stations, it's going to be a higher capital upfront cost, but lower O&M. And with this one, when you own the station, it's more potential for grant opportunities. Some of these grants are only applicable if you own the station, not lease them. And a third option could be maybe El Paso Electric could collaborate with the City of Socorro, and where we own and maintain the stations. And so we'd be responsible for installation, O&M, upkeep, and then the City of Socorro would just provide us with right-of-ways and or easements if necessary. And then they would have to approve a city-specific tariff, so that way we could come to an agreement at what the rates would be for charging at these charging stations. Oh, and at the very bottom right there, we also like to show that slide. That image right there shows all the electrical infrastructure that's supporting these charging stations. El Paso Electric, the utility side, we're gonna have our distribution lines, we have a transformer, and then we have the meter. Everything up to the meter is the utilities property, El Paso Electric, but everything past the meter would be through a third-party vendor. So if you guys have an installer, your installer would go in from the meter, do a sub-panel or a separate meter, and then they would go install your charging station as well. So these are the charging station implementation process. So after today's meeting, maybe you guys might want to consider if you want to do some level 1, level 2, or DC fast charging stations. We didn't have a slide on level 1, but level 1 is basically your standard 120 volt outlet. That's the same you would use to charge your cell phone. That's the slowest form of charging, and you could only get about maybe 5 to 10 miles per hour of plug-in. So most people tend to go towards the level 2 route. You'd have to decide if you guys wanted a pedestal, overhead, pole, maybe wall mounted. And then you have to decide if you want a network versus non-network charging station. And all that means is basically a network charging station is something that can connect to the internet. And when it connects to the internet, you basically have more capabilities, you have more visibility, and you qualify for more incentives and grant opportunities. Of course, location is key. We talked about the average customer would stay at maybe 1 to 2 hours at these charging stations. So you have to have some sort of amenity or some reason why the customer could stay for those 1 to 2 hours. Maybe it be a movie, a shopping, or a gym, so that way they could be entertained while their vehicle's being charged. You guys would issue an RFP or an RFI, so that way you could look at all the different charging station vendors, manufacturers, different installers, and different O&M upkeeps. Sometimes you can get them all bundled into one, or sometimes you may want to piecemeal depending on what kind of partnerships you have with certain manufacturers or local electricians. You could always call El Paso Electric to estimate the cost of the infrastructure upgrades. And that goes back to that slide we showed you earlier about our distribution lines, the transformers. Sometimes we might have a transformer upgrade maybe be needed, or sometimes maybe we need to put in an extra line. It's always best to consult us before you guys start any implementation, so that way we can give you a cost estimate and advise you on the best available rates. Then you guys could determine a pricing structure. You could charge per minute, per kilowatt hour, or maybe just like a subscription fee where the customer could pay like a monthly gym membership where they pay $10 a month and they get unlimited access to the station. There's so many different things you could do. Then you guys can contact all your charging station vendors, installers, and O&M companies for that implementation, purchase your station, and schedule the installation with your installer. Next slide. So these are some available incentives right now. There's a federal tax credit incentive for $2,500 up to $7,500 on purchase of qualifying electric vehicles. The state's incentives offered by TCEQ, they're always alternating, always changing. Right now they have the alternative fueling facility program that you guys could look into. And there's a TCEQ tax incentive for up to $2,500 off on a purchasing of a qualifying electric vehicle. And at El Paso Electric, we offer special EV charging rates. These rates don't have any demand charges, so anyone who's familiar with demand versus energy, it's a very good rate to be on, so that way you don't have to worry about peak demand. So we always like to show this slide right here. There are a lot of apps out there that show all the public charging stations available. One of the more popular ones is PlugShare. And as you can see, this is a snapshot of some of our service territory in Texas and New Mexico. And you can see there's public charging stations all along I-10 and even one on the Northeast. We have over 100 charging stations within our service territory, and we hope that number grows with your guys' collaboration. And finally, this is just our contact information. You could always visit our website at epelectric.com/EV. We have an EV rate calculator for residential customers. We have all our rate opportunities there and our incentives. You could give us an email at ev@epelectric.com, or you could shoot us a call at our EV hotline. It's going to direct you to our customer service, customer care representatives. If they can't answer your question, just ask to be brought to the EV hotline, and they'll extend the line to us at the extension 5173. So thank you everybody for listening, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Angie and I are here to assist you with whatever you need.
Ms. Villalobos?
Mr. Alejandro,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia, and Mr. Martinez, on this program, there's three ways there's three different alternatives here. My concern is that I know that at one point I was trying to bring something in, but we couldn't make money off of it. Is this the same situation here, where the city cannot make money off something that they provide? That's one, I'm sorry, that's one. And what is the cost if we go with our, not the leasing, but providing it ourselves? What would be the cost, total cost?
I can answer the first one. The second one, I had no idea. The first one, if you're providing a service to citizens, like making electric charging available for electric vehicles, yes, the law is you can charge a fee for that, but you can't, the fee should reflect the cost of providing the service. You can't build in a profit factor. So there's a ceiling on it. You don't have to charge the full cost of providing the service. Some fees effectively subsidize the provision of that service. One example that's common where cities don't charge the full cost is ambulance service. It's very common for, one call for service for an ambulance that's run by a municipality to transport someone to the hospital, say that's $1,400 now. It's very common for a city to decide as a matter of policy, well, we know that's the cost, but we're going to charge $700 for a standard service call.
Okay. And then Mr. Verde can ask.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, Mayor and Council. That is an excellent question, which we obviously understand our constraints of our budget. In being good, responsible stewards of our public funding, we came, to EP Electric and said, hey, we have a question. We would love to be a very progressive, advancing community in terms of economic development that attracts our citizens or potential citizens, that there's clearly a need for a new adaptive quality of life where there's new demands in the way that people transport. And they said there's a multitude of options. As you saw in the different methods that they can install, each one of those carries a different price point. Now the price to the city also is determined by which of the options the city would like to go through. We can either lease it, meaning we'll never own it. We lease it through a company, so we're never really making money. Or we can own it and pay a fee. Or we can work with El Paso Electric, the electrical utility, who would be probably the most knowledgeable in terms of the entities that are able to create the synergy of this, and then come to an agreement with them on the tariff, which is what somebody would pay. For example, if I had an electric vehicle and I wanted to use the station, I would pay a fee of maybe like $6 for an hour. $6 an hour for 30 miles, $6 for a gallon of gas, just to apples to apples. But really the whole exploratory process of this was just to see if it was something that was feasible. And we were really shocked, like when you see that map that they presented, there's a whole bunch of charging stations in El Paso that people, like he said, are just overlook. It's not something you use and it's not something that's gonna catch your eye. However, it's such a growing commodity to the point where they asked, well, is your city interested in moving your fleet to electricity? And I said, you can do that. And then I thought, using 5310 funds, why can't our senior citizens use electrified vehicles? That would be a way of cost saving for my department, for example, on cutting the costs for maintenance and operation. And so we really were excited to see the advancement and the opportunity that are there to kind of create this cost savings approach to the city in various ways. Number one, you can offer it to your community members for those that actually have an electric vehicle, but then you can also diversify your fleet, like El Paso Electric. Angie, did you want to talk a little bit on how your fleet program has changed since you guys have implemented electric vehicles?
Yes, of course, Victor. So we have electrified approximately 7% of our fleet. And it sounds like a small number, but we try to electrify as much as we can. It's just not a lot of vehicles that we use are available in the market for purchase as electric, right? We have a lot of linemen that are using large bucket trucks, which are not available for sale as electric, for example. But we were just notified about 2 weeks ago that now there is a bucket truck that is fully electric. So we're looking into that. And so far, our experience has been very good with electric vehicles. We started the process back in 2014. So we have charging infrastructure installed at our facilities. We have charging etiquette developed for our fleet. We are reducing our O&M expenses, like James mentioned. We save money on maintenance and fuel. So if you have any questions about how electric vehicles can help your fleet with saving money on O&M, we can share some models with you. And I couldn't hear very well all the questions. I've heard one question about the costs. So today we wanted to present you with general information about all the available options, but if there is an interest, we can come back to you and present to you different costs for the ownership model, lease model, or if you partner with El Paso Electric so you can see the cost difference. We didn't do it today because it is very site specific, because charging stations, depending on the site, it could cost, it could be a range of costs. So Victor has shared with us some proposed locations. And if you would like for us to proceed, we can work with staff, Victor, and look at those proposed sites and see how much it would cost for all these different options that were described earlier.
And in addition, Ms. Valadez is also looking at those grants that EP Electric made us aware of. There's different opportunities for us to go out on our own, and also opportunity for us to partner with El Paso Electric to possibly get a wider award, since we're working directly with a utility provider. So that is something that's also on the table for a possibility. Some of the sites that we did recommend need to be, let me backtrack a little bit. The sites that we did talk to EP Electric, they let us know they had to be city owned. So we kind of looked at all of our city property and looked at larger areas of attraction and interest, such as parks, recreation centers, administration buildings, and then we kind of spread them out throughout the city, so that way each of the districts was well represented. We looked at areas such as Rio Vista Community Center, Chayapodaca Community Center, Bulldog Park, Cougar Park, Jardín de Flores. We talked about looking at, some of our police stations possibly. Chief won't mind, I'm sure. We talked about the new library location, and so we gave a plethora of addresses to EP Electric just so they could look at a Google Map image to, number one, see what infrastructure is already there, because that's going to save on our cost, and then number two, see which models of an actual provider would work there. Was there any questions for either James or Angie while they're on the call?
Yes. Mr. Cruz?
Yeah, so it's not really questions. It's more comments. I'm all for being progressive. I think we'd be the first to have a commercial charging station on the Mission Trail, which would be awesome because that's where I could see a lot of tourism or people traveling in these types of vehicles, EV, taking advantage of the Mission Trail charging station. But at the same time, we need to consider something else, right? There are businesses that operate within our city that provide fuel, which we consume. How many of us here own an electric car? I know I don't, but I'm progressive. I upgraded from gas station glasses to Ray-Bans the other day, and I'm proud of myself. But I think also, and again, like I mentioned, I like the idea. I think the main question here for everybody, because it's been going around in my head, is the return on investment. Whatever the city does need to invest in this. I know there's grants available, and I appreciate the staff going out there and researching the financial means of being able to do this. But I think what I'd like to see also from EP Electric, if they can come back to this council with a model that's data driven with some of the charging stations that you showed us there on your map, so that way we can see what the consumption looks like in those areas. Like, are they heavy populated areas? Are they within the city? What are the demographics of EV use within the city is what I'm trying to get at. Because before we're going to invest in something, but it's going to be a service. So I understand that we're not able to make money off of it. We just want to be able to provide another amenity to the city here, similar to our parks, because believe it or not, we have staff that maintain our parks day in and day out, but we have people who don't live in Socorro who come and use our parks, and they throw trash in our parks, and guess what? We're responsible for picking it up. The same thing happens with the electric charging ports. People will come in here, they'll charge their vehicles, and then they'll take off and they'll leave, but they'll say Socorro has a commercial charging station. I guess what I would like to see is numbers and see is it really worth doing it, or are we wasting our time here, or is it too soon for Socorro? Just maybe, I don't know what you all think. And I know this item here is just to vote on the research, right? We're still gathering info.
Angie, would it be possible, I know you guys are gonna go for your budget, I think this weekend was your budget talks, if I'm not mistaken. Would it be possible for you guys to come back at our next meeting, which is?
The 21st.
The 21st, with maybe some data that our council members are asking, or would that be too soon?
Yes, of course, and we also have access to the data that can show you how many people in Socorro own EVs. I'm looking at El Paso right now, there are over 2,200 people, and sometimes when I talk to local entities, they think we only have 3 or 5 EVs, but it's actually over 2,000. And we didn't include a slide on the forecasted growth of EV owners, but we can certainly show you the numbers on what it's gonna look like in a year, and 5 years, and 10 years. And I hear you, utilization rate is very important, but we also think about it as chicken or the egg problem, right? Sometimes people don't buy electric cars because there is no infrastructure, and then we don't build it because there are no EV owners. So we have to think about it and maybe do a small pilot, right? I don't think we're talking about doing 20 stations in Socorro, but I think we'll show you the numbers on how many we have, how many EV drivers we already have in Socorro, and we can talk about maybe a small pilot project, and we can collect some data on utilization rate. And if it's successful, then we can expand in the future.
What we had talked about also, council, was doing about 4 to 7 stations, depending on the area, because sometimes the stations can have 2 chargers. So you could do 2 cars at the same time, depending on the area and the infrastructure that is already there. So depending on the amount of stations, that would be something that would also cut costs. As Angie said, we can do a pilot program, but did you have a question?
Oh, I was waiting for Mayor to.
Oh, sorry. I saw
Did you have a question?
Yep.
You
No,
had
I have a
something?
comment. So we already have some data. By 2030, the 50% of cars will be electric. And I know a lot of people have, I've seen 4 or 5 parked in our area. So that's what we're looking at, because we don't want to be, and then everybody, I bet you those numbers are high because of what happened with the gas. So we don't know what's going to happen from today, 2022 to 2024. Now we go gas again, everybody's going to be again electric cars. Now we don't want to be responsive, we want to be proactive. And I believe this is a great course, and a pilot program would be great, so we can see exactly what we need here. Exactly, because let me tell you, people, if it's not a pop and shop gas station, they'll be all right. But if they beat us to it, then they're gonna be profiting off what we're doing, and it's providing a service for our citizens. So, and I don't know if you can tell me by the meeting or whenever you guys still got time, all we need is a 79927 zip code. And that is fairly in our area. And to think somebody maybe in Fabian, somebody who has a long travel, they can stop by Socorro. Hey, let's stop by Socorro. Let's go to the park. We'll charge up there. We'll buy the Mission Trail. We'll go eat wherever it's eat. I'm just saying, because if 8 years from now, there's 50% of new cars, then we're already behind. If that's the data we're following that they presented. Thank you.
Ms. Villalobos?
Victor, thank you for the, my questions were, how many can you charge at the same time? Number two, how many stations we're going to look at? And number three, is there an express station? Because a lot of people just need 6 minutes to get home because they're running low and they don't want to wait for somebody for an hour. And the other thing is, you know, we're always looking at the future. I've heard that in the future there's going to be vehicles with the solar panels on top. How does that play with, if that's the case, if that's being looked at, if that's coming, how does that play into all this?
I think to answer a few of the questions, number one, I would agree with Mr. Cruz completely. I think that this would be the catalyst that brings more tourism to the district and the catalyst for more expansion eastward. I think, as we've all seen from our events, we get a large number of people that aren't from Socorro. We have a great reputation for a great quality of life, and I think this kind of adds to that. I think this will help not only our expanding businesses and artistic community that we have, but advance that. As far as growth and expansion into the future, I think science has come so far so quickly that I wouldn't disagree that they probably are looking at that. If we're looking at solar farming and how to, harness that power and how to power our businesses, our municipalities with that power, I wouldn't put it past a car to do that. I think as cars evolve, so does technology, and we have to adapt with that and how we offer, different services to our constituents. I'm not sure if Angelica wants to chime in on the car question, but I think it's important that we at least have the discussion now on how we, number one, attract residents to Socorro and doing something different, and number two, being the role model for what advancement should look like with responsible planning. And Ms. Rodarte has a question.
Ms. Rodarte?
Mayor, I recommend that we go back with the questions that you all have, bring back more information to be able to answer a little bit more of your questions. I do feel a pilot program is important. I don't know, about 4, 6, 7 stations, but that's something that we can go back and talk about and then bring you a more realistic plan. Okay?
I agree. Mr. Reyes?
Just a question or comment when everybody comes back. Maybe how many charging stations we would get if we were to do the pilot program?
With El Paso Electric?
Yes.
Angelica, did you hear that? Angie, did you hear that
How many
question?
parking spaces?
They want to know how many charging stations we could get if we did a partnership program with EP Electric.
The pilot.
I would have to check with our upper management. It is really site specific. So of course, if the site will have a higher utilization rate, we can probably do more, but I would have to check on the exact numbers and on our budget. And to address earlier question about vehicles with solar panels, yes, it is true that some of them will have a solar panel on top. but the truth is that it is a very small space, right? So that solar panel is probably just gonna power some music center, power electronics within the vehicle, maybe help out with AC, but it's not going to provide enough power to make the vehicle running. So there will still be a need for charging stations, either as a pedestal or the fast charger. We're seeing that in California, they're installing megawatt chargers now that are very, very quick. They can refuel in about 10 minutes. We're also looking at wireless charging that could be incorporated into roads, but that technology is not ready for implementation yet. Our local University of Texas at El Paso is looking into incorporating some special material in the roadway to allow for vehicles to charge wirelessly, but it's our understanding it's gonna be very, very expensive and you cannot do it on all the roads in the US. So we're monitoring Tesla and other automaker companies to see what they're doing, because they're usually the ones that set the trends for the future, and all of them are investing in charging stations right now.
We have a motion to approve.
Do we need to amend the?
Yes, can we amend
Yes.
to,
Come back with the information?
yes.
Okay.
Who
Mr.
made the
Nevares.
motion?
I amend my motion to have EP Electric come back with a little more detailed information as to how this operates, numbers in general.
Angie, did you hear that?
To come back with more detailed information and numbers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Second.
You're sounding like me.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colombia Lopez.
Yes, don't forget the cost, please.
Item number 26, discussion and action to direct city manager and or her designated staff to install a guardrail at the end of Flor del Sur, Socorro, Texas 79927, near 221 Flor del Sur. Also, a dead-end sign to be installed at the beginning of Flor del Sur near Flor del Sol.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We have a couple of constituents here. They called me, asking me if we could put a guardrail because the street is dark. There's no dead end. It is a dead end. It goes, their street ends at a farm that has a non-functioning ditch that is serviced, should be serviced, has not been serviced in years by the irrigation, El Paso County irrigation. I spoke to them. The reason they haven't cleaned it up was because it's not functioning. So that's where the cars end up when they're speeding through there. So a guardrail would help. A dead-end sign would definitely help. And the county irrigation ditch is going to look into maybe removing that ditch that's non-functional. But for now, they need to clean it because it's infested with snakes. At this time of year, that's when the snakes come out. Mattresses, tires, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Mayor, we have two speakers for this item. Rogelio Ochoa.
First of all, thank you for letting us speak here. This is a matter of safety. We have had a lot of close calls, cars coming, going east, and they don't notice that the ditch is there because it's almost street level. There's no signs at all, there's no barriers at all. So thank you for taking this into consideration, and also we need some street lighting in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Blanca Ochoa. Ana Mesa.
Ya se fue.
Mayor, those all are speakers.
Thank you.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 20, discussion and action to establish and adopt contract letting procedures for the city of Socorro.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Alejandra Valadez, City Development Director. We are requesting your approval on letting procedures for the City of Socorro. The city must adopt letting procedures before a transportation project can be placed under contract. Letting is the process of making a project available for bidding. It involves the submission of bids through a public advertisement process, the receipt of bids, the selection of the most responsive bid using a competitive selection process based on qualifications, best value, experience, and other factors. Adopting these letting procedures will ensure that we follow TxDOT requirements for our 3 upcoming transportation projects, which are Bovie Bridge Replacement Project, Rio Vista Bridge Replacement Project, and the Passmore Shared Use Path. These 3 projects are scheduled to let in the next month. So it's very time sensitive for us to adopt these letting procedures. We do apologize for the typos that are in the letting procedure that was included in your backup. As I mentioned, this is a very time sensitive procedures that need to be adopted in order for us to be able to let by August. Since we were up against the deadline to submit it in time for the agenda item deadline last week, since then we have updated the document. We changed all mentions of the City of Horizon to the City of Socorro. We also changed all mentions of the purchasing division or purchasing department to the finance department, and also following our purchasing policy. And then we have changed all mentions of our city engineer to the city planner, because we don't have a city engineer. And so we are requesting a motion to adopt these letting procedures with the changes that I just described, which are changing the City of Horizon to City of Socorro, changing purchasing division or purchasing department to finance department, and changing city engineer to city planner. We also have Ms. Blanca Serrano from TxDOT here, in case there are any technical questions. She was kind enough to join us today.
Do you have questions? Motion?
We have a motion, Mayor.
But with the changes? With her changes?
I would like to amend my motion to have a motion to approve with the changes that Ms. Alejandra made.
Second.
Second.
Ruben Reyes.
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 21, discussion and action to establish and adopt policies and procedures to implement the Texas Department of Transportation's TxDOT Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program for the City of Socorro projects that are funded or assisted by TxDOT.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program goes along with the letting procedures. This is also something that we need to adopt in order to proceed into the letting process for our 3 transportation projects that are coming up. The Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program was created to provide a level playing field for small, minority, and women-owned companies wanting to do business with TxDOT or other agencies like the City of Socorro that have received TxDOT funding or funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation. The DBE program adheres to the regulations set forth by the U.S. Department of Transportation and all the federal regulations. At this time, we do request a motion to adopt TxDOT's DBE program and approve an MOU with TxDOT for the implementation of the DBE program.
And then I would suggest to authorize the city manager to execute it.
I'd like to amend my motion to approve with the amendments done by Ms. Alejandra and And an MOU.
Enter an MOU with Texas.
And giving the city manager the authority to oversee. Execute.
Second?
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colo Villalobos.
Yes. Item number 22, discussion and action to approve the installation of streetlights on Buford Road and Santa Paula Drive.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Would you like to introduce?
Yes, this is one of my items. So I received a couple of calls, and I know Mr. Cruz did too, kind of in the same area. And they were asking for more streetlights, and that's the reason we're here. If we can do the LEDs, I think would be.
Mr. Garcia?
Didn't we, when we're gonna wait till the new lights came out from the El Paso Electric? The LED that we talked about the last meeting?
So the installation can be done for LEDs. We just don't have a maintenance crew, and El Paso Electric does not have an actual cost. However, we have been going out for quotes for several repairs that and I mean, it's a little hefty, but they're not in a high volume.
Okay, so we can actually install lights in different districts like this?
Yes, you can. I would just caution, we don't have a specific budget item. We are nearing our last 3 months of our fiscal year. So I think that during our budget process on the 16th, we should allocate some funding for every district for street lights for their district.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation. However, I think that the amount, the amount that's being asked for today, I know Mr. Cruz also has an item. They're not significant, but if we start getting items every council meeting, then it could become a problem, right? But right now, I don't see with the 2 items that there is a problem with the cost.
And these will be able to be serviced by El Paso Electric right now?
No, not the LED. So the LED will be installed. However, the sodium lights are going to be discontinued. So we are moving forward. We should start the LEDs. They just don't have a maintenance plan. But that doesn't mean that in 1 to 2 years, they'll provide the maintenance plans, because they're actually recommending for us to convert into an LED lighting system, because the other ones are going to be discontinued at some point.
Ms. Villalobos?
So this brings me to a question of a constituent this week along the lines of the LED lights. So whatever LED lights that we have now that are in need of repair, the city of Socorro would be responsible to fix them. We just don't have that personnel. Are we working on it?
So we don't retrofit. We don't have an electrician on board. We go out and look for pricing, right? And depending on the price, if it's more than 3,000, we have to get 3 quotes. If it's less than that, then we can go ahead and make the purchase, right? And with budget constraints, right? That's why I'm saying for next fiscal year, if we allocate some funding for every district, we don't have to be coming to council every single time. I can tell you, well, you've used this much, maybe do a budget amendment or wait till the next fiscal year to implement more lighting.
Are we looking into hiring somebody to do our LED lights in the future? Or it's just not feasible and it's cheaper just to go out and contract somebody?
So because the LED lighting is so new, most of the repairs that are needed is due to vandalism, and they don't happen at a high volume. I've had one, and right now we just got a report for another, and it's mainly the new areas that have the LEDs that we are looking for pricing. However, at some point, we are gonna have to do an RFP proposal in order to bring someone on board to do that maintenance until El Paso Electric is able to provide that service. And then at that point, we can look at pricing and see if it's better to go through El Paso Electric or continue doing or outsourcing it.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares, Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 23, discussion and action to approve a work order in the amount of $50,000 to hire El Paso County to perform repair and maintenance work with heavy equipment on and around the Onion Field Drainage Basin located at the intersection of Thunder Road and Rio Vista Road in Socorro, Texas, pursuant to an interlocal agreement with El Paso County in the event of a rain event.
Motion to approve for discussion?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item was brought up because we did receive a pretty significant storm in June that clogged our culverts. Our culverts are 4x4 and they're 144 feet long. So the silt comes down with debris and it makes it impossible. So when it rained, I know I got a visit from Mr. Reyes and I was very nervous. Sorry, my Google.
She doesn't understand.
Me and Mr. Reyes were discussing. I know that he went back to the county and asked. He sent me some pictures, and then I told him we do have an interlocal agreement. We're gonna request some equipment to go out there, and so they quoted me. Their quote came back though, because if we do use their machinery, they need to be used by their operators for liability purposes. So it's like they're renting out the service. So I do know that for that job, they quoted us $50,000. However, our staff, our public works staff, has been working diligently day and night to be able to unclog them. I can tell you right now, all 4 of them are unclogged. As of this morning, we were still smooth, even with the rains that we've captured. And I think that for this monsoon season, we will be good. However, I placed the item on the agenda just to have your prior approval, since it's more than $25,000, in order for me to have that authority to be able to call out the county for assistance if we need to, right? With the new engineering service, I do know that we're gonna go into the next phase, which is the concrete lining from Stockyard to Thunder. So that will eliminate a lot of the silt that's coming down. And then with the new engineering company, I am gonna ask if we can look at another design that gives our employees a little bit more room to be able to maintenance it and purchase the equipment through ARPA funding to be able and maintenance those culverts.
Mr. Garcia?
I just want to amend my motion to, from discussion to approve. Motion to approve.
We have another question. Ms. Villalobos?
I guess my question is, where is this debris coming from? Do we know?
Correct, so I don't know if you've ever visited the, by Reed Road, right? So the Sparks Arroyo comes all the way from the colonias up north, right? So all that debris is coming down. I mean, and we're talking about tires, wires, rocks, silt, and then it's very fine sand. So once it clogs up, there's no room for it to go anywhere.
So my suggestion is, on our end, what belongs to us, if we haven't already implemented, having that whole area clean, completely clean. I know it's coming from a Horizon area. I don't know if it's the El Paso County responsible or Horizon, but if we can have ours clean and investigate where the rest will be coming, because it will be coming again, and it's costing us a lot of money, and get those entities to commit to the cleaning prior to the rains.
Correct, so the Texas Water Development Board just awarded us the $10 million in order for us to look into cleaning up all that area, right? But it's a $10 million project. I know that the county's working also diligently up there to be able to capture that water, even in that area and in the Coker area, right? So they're doing their part up front, and they're also getting funding from the ARPA fund. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, we've been tackling this for,
A long time.
I mean, I've been here almost 9 years, but we're slowly moving.
Moving, okay.
Yes, but that's why the next option is concrete line,
Mhm.
right? So we're gonna concrete line, that way it'll eliminate some of the silt that's coming down.
And will that block in that area, like where our area begins, can we block that from
No.
coming down?
No, ma'am, I would invite you to kind of go out with me to really understand the magnitude of, I mean, and water comes and it just doesn't, people think, oh, it's just water. No, it moves.
Everything.
Yes. So, but I mean, anytime that you would like, we could go out there and really see the area.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
But
you.
I do want to thank Mr. Reyes for taking initiative. I know last night he did text me, hey, are we good? And I said, yeah, we're good. I haven't received any reports. So thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Do we have a
Motion.
second?
Want a
You
second?
did a motion.
Somebody want a second? Second.
To approve, right?
To approve.
Yes. Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colombia Lopez.
Yes, yes.
Item number 25, discussion and action to approve the installation of streetlights on Place Road and La Veranda Drive.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So the item that is being presented tonight is as stated. The only difference from the first request of street lighting was for LED. These are for high-pressure sodium, which are cheaper than the LED. And eventually, when EP Electric and the city can agree to who's going to work on those LED lights and replacing all of our high-pressure sodium with LED, we'll deal with that matter then. But this one right here is, and trust me, as much as I want to light up the entire city of Socorro, I understand that we are on a tight budget for lighting, which is why I'm only bringing this item here because of the safety concern to elderly that live within the area. And you'll see that the price or cost of lighting is stated here on the agenda. And if anyone would like to open for discussion, I'm all ears.
Ms. Villalobos?
And I'm all for streetlights, pero lo barato puede salir caro. So this is why, if we're just gonna transition, and how many lights are we requesting on this item?
I believe it's a total of 3. Ms.
Correct.
Rodarte?
So there's an app that is attached that identifies the lighting. I think if we go the LED, it's a total cost of $1,700 and a monthly base fee of 68 cents.
And the other way around?
Can
is-
install a pole, I'm sorry?
Sorry, the other way around, I apologize.
It's $464 and the monthly base fee of $787. And the reason it's $787 is because they come out, El Paso Electric, you're paying for the maintenance fee, so it doesn't matter how many times it goes out, they come out and fix that light. With the LED, they don't.
So what I'm noticing is that there's an offset in cost. Once you go LED, you're paying a monthly base fee of 68 cents, as opposed to your 583 with the high-pressure sodium. So it may be top heavy for the LED installation, but then it'll even out with the LED cost.
Correct, because with the HPS, it's $787, but it might seem like a very small amount. But when you put all of the streetlights of Socorro and lighting up the city, it adds up, right? So we have to be conscious of that.
I understand.
I vote for LED, but that is your item, sir.
Yeah, this council likes to put LED lights, I'm all for it. But at the same time, I like to present options to the council, and that way you all are aware of the cost. And at the end of the day, keep in mind, when we start adding LEDs, for calls and concerns, that's going to be the request from here moving forward. We set precedents for that. I just want to make everyone aware. But my initial request was just to have some type of lighting. So that way our residents don't have to light cans with firewood and stuff, you know. We're trying to get away from that. But if the council wishes, and if anybody would like to amend the initial item presented here to install LED, I'm all for it.
Mr. Nevares, would you like to amend the motion
No.
to include LED or the?
No, we'll leave it as is for now until we can
High pressure solar.
budget for LEDs.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, do we have anything for 27, 20 through 30?
Yes, ma'am, we do have one item.
Number 30, I believe.
Yes.
Would anybody like to delete items 27 through 29?
Motion to delete items 27 through 29.
Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Item number 30, discussion.
Mayor, it's an
I
executive.
apologize.
We-
Motion to go into executive. Would
Second.
anybody like to?
Second.
No, anybody has the motion?
Motion to go into executive?
Second.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares,
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia,
Aye.
Rudy Cruz,
Yes.
and Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
And it is 8:07.
It is 8:07 PM. now 8:21 PM, exiting out of executive. Item number 30, discussion and action regarding Police Department reimbursement 551.071, an update from December 1st, 2021 incident.
Motion to approve.
I would suggest specifying the amount.
Motion to approve a $500 deductible reimbursement.
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares. Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Ruben Reyes,
Yes.
Cesar Nevares.
Yes.
Alejandro Garcia.
Aye.
Rudy Cruz.
Yes.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Yes.
Meeting adjourns at 8:22 PM.
Night, everyone.